All right, so now that TikTok is being sued right along with Meta, is there any chance that this is a watershed moment and it does become something that maybe other tech companies fall in line with?
This is most definitely a watershed moment, and really in the history of social media and kids' use of the internet. Not only the size of the settlement, which is astounding, and may in fact be one of the largest multi-attorney general events ever, but the important changes that the company will have to make about the experience of child users online. I really think it's highly likely that the other companies will join, at least in part. That remains to be seen. Obviously, your Attorney General deserves a lot of the credit here.
What have we seen how this, because there's been social media bans already in place in other countries, Europe as an example, many countries in Europe, and yet kids were still able to circumvent some of these guardrails that were put into place.
Australia, in fact, was the very first. Julie Inman Wright, the child safety expert at the federal level, was the first to propose a nationwide ban that went into effect late last year. That is true that kids will try to be kids and they will try to circumvent. That's going to be one of the controls Facebook's going to have to put in place, and all of these platforms are going to have to put in place to verify and really double check user identity. That's what all of these protections will hinge on: someone self-identifying or the platform knowing that they are under 18.
But how challenging is that going to be?
How is that?
You know,
how is that possible?
Right. How can
That's
they do
the irony of this situation. People in privacy would say, we don't want the platforms to know more about us. Parents would say, we want our kids to be safe and have a controlled experience online. It's a balancing test, and it is a challenge for the platforms, and it really requires partnership of the parents and the platforms. What I would say to is this is a day for celebration, but unfortunately we can't take our eye off the ball. There's still work to be done at home, monitoring your kids' use, making sure that what they're seeing is in alignment with your family's experience and values and priorities. So it is a very hard a road to hoe ahead for the platforms and still for the families.
But the parents can only go so far. We were just talking about this earlier. We can't be everywhere all the time with our children, especially as they move through their day without us. So there's got to be some sort of onus on behalf of Meta and these tech companies. Like, for example, if you by age verification right now, it's a simple drop-down menu. So how are they going to implement real structural changes?
I think it remains to be seen what kind of double checking and kind of process they're going to put in place to either verify with a parent, find some kind of way of verifying the actual date of birth. I think the controls are really meaningful, and this is a giant step forward for child safety online. But you are right that the controls will all hinge upon a much more robust age verification mechanism. It might require a parent to log in for the first time to say, this is really my child and I authorize this use. The gap is going to be the kids who are already online with false birthdays and what they might be able to do, if anything, for that cohort. I think it will be really powerful for kids who are going to be logging in for the first time, who are new to the platforms.
So, Nuala, we kind of detailed some of the changes here, including the daily time limits of 2 hours for users under the age of 18, the default nighttime block between midnight and 6 a.m. for users under 18, limit on beauty filters. Was there anything in that list that you felt was missing? Do these changes go far enough?
The changes are incredibly powerful, especially that they get to the heart of content about bullying and self-harm and body image, but they don't get to the heart of how the algorithm works. So there is still a very significant question about whether these amendments go far enough to change the online experience of addiction to the ever-scrolling medium. But the time limits are a great first step. It's what a lot of us at homes are putting in place and trying to get our kids to give us our phones and log off overnight and get a good night's sleep. So they are very practical, and they really reflect the good guidance from experts in the field and medical professionals to say, you've really got to limit the amount of time kids are online in large blocks because it's just really harmful for them.
To Meta's points, you have to do this for all social media platforms, because if I'm considering the perspective of a teenager, if I can't do the stuff that I want to do on Instagram or Facebook, I'm just going to move right on over to TikTok, where they might not have as strict regulations. So Attorney General Rob Bonta is now suing TikTok, but do you expect other tech companies to fall in line with this?
Probably not entirely voluntarily, and that's the challenge of a single company settlement, and that's why so many of us are calling for legislation and comprehensive legislation, not only state by state, but at a federal level, because you're always going to get new platforms popping up that aren't subject to this agreement, and the attorneys general have a lot to do. It'd be a lot for them to sue every company in the social media space, but even more, exactly right. We don't want to race to the bottom or the top on these platforms. We want everyone playing by the same rules.
So you're in the D.C. area. You talk about legislation. Is there anything happened right now? Is there a full-throated push now to actually create some federal legislation to try and monitor these companies?
There has been a lot of activity. The Kids Online Safety Act is the most recent example of that. There have been calls for comprehensive privacy legislation for decades. But I do think this settlement is a really important moment to raise the profile of this issue and get legislators at the state and the federal level talking about these things, because that is really what we're going to need to cement these kind of norms, is not just a single company agreement, but a comprehensive piece of legislation that applies to everybody fairly.
All right, Nuala O'Connor, thank you
for your
insight.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.